Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave, and in my last video I covered several ETFs that were good for younger me. And there I am. Look, he looks really serious. Like he's got a stick up his butt, and he needs to eat some green leafy vegetables to kind of get things started. But he did do some things right. A lot of the key things he did right, like living below his means, paying himself first, and saving a bunch of money. So that really kickstarted the wealth plan. That was a good job. Good job. But as far as his investments, he tinkered around too much, bought some stupid things. So overall, I'd give him a B, maybe a B minus. He'd probably give me something worse than that, though, because I can't quite remember the day of the week anymore. But nevertheless, now that I'm in my 50s, I sit here before you, and it's time for me to decide what I'd be buying as a 50-year-old. So, time for me to do my Stuart Smalley, look in the mirror and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me should be buying the following ETFs. So let's find out what those are. If that is what you're looking for, please stick around. Whoop. So recently I've had the good fortune of talking to several investors that are about my age about their particular situation. And it ranges everywhere from I need to get more focused and save more to I'm solid and I'm on track for when I want to retire to I have more than I'll ever need and what do I do now? So it really depends on the situation as far as what allocation and what products you might be looking at. So understand everybody's different. So what I'm going to show you today is my current thought and the ETFs that I've been buying recently and what I think is good for me at this point based on my personal situation. So I'll show you several ETFs. Every single one of these I have a position in, and the ones that I have a larger position in, those will be the leaders, of course. So that said, let's jump in and take a look. So the first one I have on my list is something that I buy every single week. I've been buying it for years. I'm going to continue to buy it through my 50s, into my 60s likely, and maybe even beyond. And it's VOO. It's the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. It makes investing extremely simple. Buy this index, and over time, it performs very well based on past history. Now, VOO has an expense ratio that's very low, 0.03%. There's plenty of other ones you could substitute in for this, like IVV, for example. But a great simple way to invest is just to buy the S&P 500, something like VOO. And if you look at the holdings, you're going to find all the big ones, Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, and so forth and so on. But it's 500 stocks, US based. Hard to beat just buying this index routinely. So I will continue to buy this through my 50s. The next one on my list is SCHD. This is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, a very popular ETF over the last couple of years. Last year, it did not perform that well, up about 5.64% over the last 1 year. It yields about 3.4%. Expense ratio is very reasonable at 0.06%. Solidly built fund with great selection criteria, and that's why I continue to add to this position. Now, performance wasn't great last year. That's 1 year. You can't take a snapshot of just 1 year. We're a long-term investor. Even at age 50, I'm going to continue to own this for another 10 or 20 years. And I believe as the market starts to broaden out, which we're starting to see, that SCHD will benefit greatly from that. So I have a large position in SCHD. Another one that's similar to this that I've been buying for the last, 5-6 years is VYM. That's another one, a smaller position with VYM, but another great one. It's been outperforming SCHD too, so check out VYM as well. As far as holdings go, top 10 are Broadcom, AbbVie, Merck, Home Depot, TI, Verizon, Chevron, Amgen, Coca-Cola, and Cisco. Makes up 41%. They only have 104 holdings. So again, that selection criteria is critical. And if a few don't perform well, that's going to have that effect. So SCHD, one that I will continue to buy and hold. The next one on my list is XLV, which is the Healthcare Spider Select Sector ETF. And I've been buying a lot of this. In 2023, I really loaded up on it. I've been buying it for a couple years, and I like the defensive nature of the healthcare sector. So this one does have a little bit of yield, 1.5%. Expense ratio is pretty low, 0.09%. And it's held up really well versus the S&P 500 over the last 10 years. Different than the S&P 500 because it's focused on just healthcare, but it's held up really well. If we look at the holdings, we got Eli Lilly, United Health Group, Johnson & Johnson, AbbVie, Merck, Thermo Fisher, Abbott Labs, Danaher, Pfizer, Amgen, and that makes up about 55% of the fund, 65 holdings altogether. A very good option if you're looking for something slightly defensive that should hold up well over the long term. I like healthcare. The next one on my list is XLK. This is all about technology. Again, this is from Spider. This is their Select Sector ETF. XLK. And I've been loading up on this one over the last couple of years. It's been a very good performer for me. I have a large position in this and one of my core portfolio builds. And I've done a whole video on the combination of XLK, XLV, and SCHD, which are the last three that we really talked about. I'll link that video up above right now. I really like that combination. Very little fun to overlap, and I like the performance out of those three together. That little triad, I really like it. So anyway, XLK, you could substitute several. For example, VGT, which I've talked a lot about, and I have a nice position in VGT as well. VUG, I've got a decent position there. And there's QQQM. You could also buy QQQ, but QQQM is cheaper if you just want to buy and hold. Buy QQQM. Any of these are going to give you a lot of exposure to the tech sector, and they've been outstanding performers over the last 10 years and going farther back too. But very good performers, something that you can buy and hold. So I've got a mishmash of all these, but XLK is probably my largest position out of those that I just mentioned. I just did a video on QQQ too, and you can go find that yourself. But a great option, and one that I'm going to continue to buy. Again, I have a very large position with XLK. So again, I want that growth still in my portfolio, my personal portfolio. I still do options. I still do a lot of things to hedge my portfolio and add income and things like that. But you also want just some growth. So I continue to build these positions. So top 10 positions are what you know: Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA, Broadcom, AMD, Salesforce, Adobe, Accenture, Cisco, and Qualcomm. 67 holdings. So really focused when it comes to XLK. 67 different holdings. Great fund. The next one on my list is JEPI, and you might as well toss in JEPQ. This is the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF, and we've talked a lot about this, several other covered call ETFs, but do want to throw these in there because JEPI and JEPQ are positions that I'm growing. Those are the main two that I buy as far as covered call ETFs. Again, my exposure isn't great, but I slowly grow it. It's almost like an infectious way to invest, right? You get that income every single month. And if that helps you invest more each month, then it's probably not such a bad thing. Now, as far as performance goes, I think they're always going to underperform their underlying indexes. So I think JEPI will probably, likely, underperform VOO, for example, over the long period of time. I've done a video on that as well. You can go find it. Yeah, I think they're still good, unique products, and these have been managed pretty darn well by JP Morgan and their group over there. So JEPI, JEPQ. And there are several others that you can throw into this, and I've done lots of reviews of those recently. So if you like these type of ideas, then have at it. But expense ratio, 0.35%, a lot higher than the other ones we've talked about so far, but reasonable, especially for this type of category where we're dealing with options. Yield on this one's 7.64%. That's fallen off where it was when volatility was much higher, but still a nice yield, 7.64%. And with JEPQ, it's closer to 9.5 or so. But nice funds that have grown significantly. And so JP Morgan's got a lot of focus on these because this is a $32 billion fund now that has that nice big expense ratio. This makes them a lot of money. It does probably pretty darn well for them. If we look at holdings, we're going to see classic stocks like Meta, Progressive, Amazon, Microsoft in there, MasterCard, AbbVie, Costco. 136 holdings for this particular one. And then they sell those options, okay, to generate that yield. I've got videos of this as well explaining more about it. So just go search JEPI or JEPQ or anything else. As far as covered calls, you might find it on my channel. But good little funds, slowly growing my position with these two. The next one on my list is DIVO, the Amplify Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. I've been buying this one for the last several years, slowly growing my position. The expense ratio is 0.56%. It yields around 4.5% currently, but it goes up to about 5.5%, depending on what they're doing within this fund. So it is a managed ETF, and I like this one. You know, the performance has been pretty good, and it reminds me of what I actually do myself. I guess maybe that's why I'm drawn to it a little bit. So they have a basket of stocks. They sell covered calls against selected stocks every single month to add some income to the portfolio. And if you look at my portfolio, I'm kind of set up that way. I have individual stocks and some ETFs. I sell calls against those positions. I also sell puts to pick up additional shares and kind of grow my portfolio that way, either adding income or growing my positions within the stocks and ETFs that I really like. So if you like that kind of thing, there's plenty of stuff out there on my channel that you can go watch as well. So Devo is one that I'm going to continue to buy. There's also international Devo, IDVO, if you want some international exposure, which I think is a great idea. As far as holdings, common stocks that you're used to. Again, we're looking at Walmart, Microsoft, Home Depot, Procter & Gamble, Visa, McDonald's, Chevron, so forth and so on. Only 40 holdings, very selected, and they trade in and out of some of these, so it is a managed ETF. It's important to understand. You got to trust them with your money a little bit, and then they sell those calls against different positions to try to add that income. So a fun little fund that I'll continue to buy. I like it. The last one on my list for today is AGGH. This comes to us from Simplify. It's their aggregate bond ETF. Now, I've been buying this one since I reviewed it. I'll link that review up above. It's important to watch that because this is a little more complicated than your average aggregate bond ETF. Lots going on with this fund. But I feel like I need some bond exposure. And if I'm going to do it through a ETF like this, well, this would be one that I'm kind of interested in. So down 1% on the year, I get it, but yielding over 10% over the last 12 months. So pretty impressive as far as that yield goes. Can it hold up? That's what we got to see. Expense ratio is 0.33%. And I like the ideas that are behind this, but again, it's very complicated. You can kind of see their holdings. If you can figure all that out, great, have at it. But it is complicated, so you can go watch that video if you want to understand a little bit more about it. For something simpler, but still with risk, I have SCYB also. I've been building this position. This is a new one from Schwab, their high yield bond ETF. What I like about this one is the expense ratio is extremely low, 0.03%. Yielding 4.5%, that's not based on a whole year, so it's going to end up probably around 7.5%, somewhere in there. So again, if you're into the high yield bond idea, I've been building up my positions in these slowly over time. Again, dollar cost averaging into some of these. Now, I also own individual bonds. That's probably my preferred way to go, but building some small positions in some of these funds as we go along. Now, all the information that you just saw did come from Seeking Alpha. I'm a Seeking Alpha affiliate. There are affiliate links down below. If you want access to this product and that type of information, you can use those links. If not, then don't worry about it. But all the ETFs I just talked about are things that I'm buying now in my 50s that I feel confident in based on my position and where I sit right now. So what are you buying? I'd love to hear. Let me know down in the comments. If you have questions on any of this, ask down in the comments or email me. And I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time when we'll likely talk about when I get older what I'm going to do. Have a great night. Take care. Whoop.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.